My name is Amelia. The story I am about to disclose is not something I admit with ease, yet it left an indelible mark on my soul, forcing me to confront profound questions about emotion, responsibility, and that razor-thin boundary separating right from wrong. It began on a crisp morning when my husband, Greg, departed early for a weekend business trip to Los Angeles. We shared a modest, beautiful home by the California shore, characterized by expansive windows that invited the golden sunlight to dance across the floors while the rhythmic, soothing roar of the Pacific echoed through the rooms. Greg was devoted to his career, and I remained his steadfast supporter, even if his frequent absences made the house feel progressively emptier with every departure. To occupy the quiet hours, I decided to refresh our living space. With a soft jazz playlist humming through the speakers, I created an airy, calm atmosphere that harmonized with the fresh ocean breeze flowing through the house. Dressed simply in a white t-shirt and denim shorts, I set to work dusting the high bookshelves where Greg displayed his most cherished mementos. Suddenly, the hair on my neck prickled. I had the unmistakable sensation of being watched. Turning around, I found Ryan, Greg's son from a previous marriage, leaning casually against the door frame. He looked as though he'd just woken up, his hair a mess of curls, his eyes still heavy with sleep. "Good morning, Ryan," I said, offering a bright smile to mask the sudden jump in my pulse. "Morning," he murmured. His gaze lingered on me a fraction longer than usual. He wandered into the living room and settled onto the sofa, his eyes tracking my movements. I attempted to focus on my task, but his presence created a strange, magnetic weight in the room. We exchanged small talk about his upcoming internship and academic projects, but my concentration was shattered. As I reached up to straighten a heavy picture frame on the highest shelf, the small stool beneath me wobbled. Gravity took hold, and for a terrifying second, the world tilted. "Amelia!" Ryan cried out. He lunged forward, catching me by the waist just before I hit the floor. In the sudden stillness of the room, time seemed to liquefy. I felt the immense steadiness of his grip. We stood there, frozen, my breath hitching in my chest as our eyes locked. I felt the firmness of his embrace, yet there was a surprising gentleness to it, as if he were holding something incredibly fragile. My heart hammered against my ribs when I realized our proximity. I could feel the radiant warmth of his breath against my skin. Attempting to diffuse the mounting tension, I let out a nervous laugh. "Good thing you were here. That could have been a nasty fall." Ryan didn't pull away. He didn't even speak. His eyes remained anchored to mine, filled with a turbulent mixture of curiosity, confusion, and a raw sense of admiration. I eventually stepped out of his hold, adjusting my clothes to regain some semblance of composure. "Do you have plans for the weekend?" I asked, my voice sounding thin to my own ears. "Not really," he replied with a faint, enigmatic smile. "I'll probably just stay here and relax." I gestured for him to sit with me on the sofa, needing a moment to steady my nerves. As we sat, the physical space between us felt smaller than it ever had. The silence wasn't the awkward kind. It was heavy, comfortable, and saturated with the sound of the waves outside. "I've always loved mornings like this," I whispered. "Peaceful and unhurried." "Me too," Ryan replied, his voice dropping to a low register. "Especially when there's someone to share it with." His tone carried a weight that suggested he wasn't just talking about the weather. I felt a flush of heat rise to my cheeks. A hazy, dreamlike sensation began to take over. Without a conscious thought, I reached out and grazed his arm. That tiny contact made the air turn to ice. "Ryan." I breathed, unsure of what I was even protesting. He didn't pull back. Instead, he covered my hand with his palm warm and reassuring. In that moment, the realization hit me. We were standing on the precipice of something far larger than a fleeting moment of closeness. As he leaned in, I found that I lacked the will to retreat. The world outside the window vanished. When his lips finally met mine, it wasn't a rushed or frantic thing. It was soft, deliberate, and devastatingly emotional. A shiver cascaded down my spine. I knew, with a sinking clarity, that we were crossing a final boundary. My reason was no match for the warmth he offered. His hand slid across my cheek, pulling me into him as if he feared I might evaporate. Amelia, he whispered against my skin. The sound of my name in his voice made me tremble. I rested my head against his chest, listening to his heart echo the frantic rhythm of my own. The walls I had built around my heart crumbled. I ran my fingers through his hair, my hands shaking under the weight of an attraction I could no longer suppress. I told myself to stop, but my heart refused to listen. I don't know what to do, he whispered. I can't stop thinking about you. We were swept away in a current of unspoken, overwhelming emotion, a sweet temptation that had pushed us past the point of no return. I felt lost in the haze, a mixture of fear and intensity. But then, the sound of the front door shattered our bubble. Amelia. I'm home. It was Greg. The sound of his voice acted like a bucket of ice water. We jolted apart, the safe sanctuary we had built dissolving instantly. Ryan's eyes were wide with panic, yet they still held that lingering, painful longing. Greg walked in, his face glowing with a cheerful, oblivious smile. Amelia. He wrapped me in a hug and kissed my forehead. I missed you. I forced a smile, my hands tucked behind my back to hide their shaking. I'm here, I managed to say. The tension in the room was suffocating. Greg spotted Ryan and clapped him on the shoulder. Ryan. Come say hi. The trip was a success. I even brought gifts for you both. Hearing the word a family or a home from Greg's lips felt like a physical blow. I was trapped between two realities, the peaceful, stable love of my husband, and the forbidden, electric connection I had just shared with his son. In the days that followed, a leaden silence hung over us. I tried to maintain the veneer of normalcy, cooking dinner, asking Greg about his meetings, but I could feel Ryan's gaze everywhere. One afternoon, while Greg was out, I went to the backyard to water the roses. I heard his footsteps behind me. You're avoiding me, Ryan said, his voice pained. Ryan, we have to move past this, I replied, staring at the rose bushes. I don't know how, he countered, stepping closer. Everything keeps replaying in my head. Every glance. I can't pretend it didn't happen. I turned to him, tears stinging my eyes. If you care about this family, if you care about your father, we have to let go. He looked as though he had been struck. Finally, he nodded and retreated into the house, leaving me alone in the fading twilight. A week later, Ryan received an offer for a dream internship in New York. Greg was bursting with pride, unaware of the silent goodbye happening right in front of him. The day Ryan left, I gave him a long, final hug. Take care of yourself, Ryan, I whispered. You too, Amelia, he replied, his eyes filled with a sad, mature understanding. I watched his car disappear down the coast, feeling a strange mixture of lightness and profound emptiness. Our story didn't have a conventional happy ending. But I learned that sometimes, choosing to walk away is the only way to preserve the beauty of what was. I stepped back into my home, back to the life I had chosen to protect, carrying the memory of that morning like a secret locket tucked deep within my soul.